you're having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 2079. Lessons handed down whether we noticed or not. So this is part of our theme this week is talking about things that we have learned through legacy, things that have been passed down to us, whether it's been physical, emotional, or just through osmosis, I guess. Would that be the right word? I don't know, but it sounds like a good word. So not all lessons are formally taught. You know, there's times that your parents will sit you down and talk to you about life and different aspects on life and how you should behave in this situation, how you should behave in that situation. You learn things at school that you get taught at school and things like that. But we're not talking about formal lessons. We're talking about those that are absorbed quietly through watching, through feeling, and living alongside those who came before us. So watching how your parents react to certain situations teaches us how to react to those situations as well. You know, when we're little, we don't realize we have a choice that we could react differently. We're just following the example set to us. We watch, we learn, we carry on. You know, somebody starts crying for something, you find out why they're crying, and then you probably start crying as well for the same reason. Later on, when that situation occurs again, your reaction is to cry because that's what you have learned. So it's living alongside those that have come before us. You know, going to your grandparents or your great-grandparents' house, you learn certain things, especially if you're there often, on how to react to certain situations, certain things that you've been told, and that sort of things as well. So many of the most lasting lessons in our lives were never written down. They were simply lived out. They were lived in front of us and we picked it up. So some lessons we inherit like heirlooms, some we pick up by accident. Tonight we're looking at the silent teachings that shape who we are. So where do our lessons come from? You've got the direct lessons, stories, traditions, advice intentionally passed down. For example, you might have your grandma say, which I have heard this from both of my grandparents, both sets of grandparents. I have also heard it from my parents. Always leave things better than you found them. And one thing I learned through moving many times as a child was that the house was always left spotless. Whenever we moved, we always left the house spotless. Whenever we arrived, one of the first things that we may have had to do was clean, because the previous people who owned the house or lived there did not leave it clean when they left. And so we'd always been taught to always leave things better than when you found them. It's like, when I leave this place, it'll be cleaner and tidier than when it was when I moved in. I had to clean when I moved in. And it's a rental. So you'd think that they would at least clean it between tenants. Nope. So that was one. Silent behaviors could be silent behaviors. Silent lessons could be behavior patterns, how people react to certain situations, emotional habits, unspoken rules we grew up inside. So, and those unspoken rules are ones that you watch, that you learn through osmosis. You learn it through watching, what you feel inside. How does somebody react to that? Oh, they feel loved and appreciated when somebody said thank you. Maybe I should feel loved and appreciated when somebody says thank you. Maybe I should come from a place of love. We learn these patterns from those that go before us. You know, never speaking about hard emotions, equating work with worthiness. You know, if you want to get somewhere in life, you got to work hard for it. If you want this, you need to earn it. You know, great lessons that we were taught growing up. Types of lessons that are handed down are, you got strengths that are handed down, like resilience during hard times. When hard times hit the family, how did the family react? How did they pull together? How were they able to get past whatever the challenge was? What did you learn from living through those times? Prioritizing family, hospitality, and loyalty. I come from families who have always put others before themselves. We are a family of, and I've learned the acts of service with others as well from both sets of my grandparents, my parents, and even my great-grandparents. I learned about the act of service. So that's something that has been passed down to me from my family, is the act of service. And family always comes first. Family always comes first. Hospitality. If you got a guest coming, if you got somebody shows up at your, be hospitable. You know, don't just sort of like slam the door in their face. But if you've got a visitor who comes in, make them feel welcomed. You know, offer them a drink, a tea or a cup of coffee, cup of tea, cup of coffee. Maybe they just want a glass of water. And if you've got friends and family members, be loyal to them. Don't turn around and go behind their back and blah, 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 blah. Be loyal to those people. If you need help with that, with a relationship with those friends and stuff, then yeah, but you've got to stand by your friends and your family. You know who they are. You know how they act. You know what they stand for and things like that. So make sure that you are loyal to them and those and the attributes that they have. Faith, another one that you get, another strength you get is faith, resourcefulness, and creativity. Oh, creativity. Yes, faith, resourcefulness, and creativity. We learned about faith through us being taken to church every Sunday and Sunday school and all of that sort of thing. But we also learned what it really meant, not just through learning about it, being spoken to about it. We learned by those who set the example and set examples for us to follow, which is how we learned about that. Resourcefulness. Oh my gosh. If you don't know this, New Zealanders are very resourceful people. We're tucked down there in the world just by ourselves. Okay, yeah, we've got Australia as a 3-hour flight away from us, but we're literally by ourselves. So a lot of times, a lot of stuff is imported, and we get it to New Zealand and we find out that it's not actually going to work how we wanted it to work. So what do these people do is they will reinvent that machine or whatever it is that they imported. They become resourceful. What can we use now that will help us reconfigure this device to work how we need it to work? Or maybe we just need to create something. There's a lot of inventions that came out of New Zealand because of the fact that we needed resourcefulness. And we learn those from around the family and things. If you've got something that needs to be fixed, sometimes you don't have the tools on hand to fix it, but maybe you can utilize other tools that might do the same job and see how you can fix it. Or maybe the patch that you're doing on something isn't sticking how it should and you don't have the right glue, but you also have other glue that's available that might do the same job. So it's looking around, what do you have available to you? It's how I became creative in the kitchen. I will tell you this is how, a lot of times I go into the kitchen. I'm like, okay, what do I feel like for dinner tonight? Nothing really appeals to me. Oh, hang on, I've got a can of this and I've got a can of that. Let's put those two together and let's do this and let's do that. And, you just use the resources that you have. And sometimes, you have to think of, okay, this is a screwdriver. How else can I use the screwdriver? Find things around there. How else can you use them to maybe do what you need done? Creativity, that comes in with resourcefulness. You've got to get creative with what you, get that creative thought. Here is my problem. How can I resolve it? What resources do I have available? What do I have available that can help me do this? That program doesn't quite do what I need it to do, but if I did this, let me find a workaround on that. And that's where the creativity comes in. How can I do this and make it work? Like years ago, I learned not to say I can't do something, but how can I make this work for my business? Completely different mindset on things like that. And creativity, that just comes along the way. I mean, you can get creative in all sorts of things. I get creative with story ideas. I get creative with drawings. I'm not the greatest artist, but hey, I have fun drawing. I just doodle sometimes. Limitations that that have been handed down is a fear of change. There's three things that are permanent in life: death, taxes, and change. Those are the three permanents that are going to happen in life, whether you like it or not. They're there. But the fear of change. Some people get a fear of change when it comes along, and I just look at it as a big adventure. What can I learn from this adventure that I'm going on? Distrust of outsiders. If somebody is outside your circle of friends, do you immediately trust them or do you distrust them? It is working out, how can I trust this person? What do I need to do, or what does this person need to do to earn my trust? And then another limitation that could be passed down is the reluctance to dream big. Some people have very small dreams, others have huge dreams. And a limitation is reluctance to dream big, but can also be a strength of the fact that you have the ability to dream big. So look at that from different perspectives. Is it a reluctance to dream big because you haven't been taught how to dream big? so you don't know how to dream big? Or is it the fact that every time you dream big, somebody shoots you down? So therefore you give up dreaming big. Don't give that up at all. How do these lessons shape us? They influence us how we set our goals. So fear of change, distrust of outsiders, reluctance to dream big can influence how we set our goals. If you can turn all those three into positives, your goals are going to be so much greater to look at. It affects how we define success or failure. What does success mean? What does failure look like? How do they look like to us? Because everybody has a different perspective on what success looks like for them based on their own goals and their own beliefs. And then everybody also has an idea on what failure looks like for them. Their failure may be somebody else's success. So how they look at failure could be how somebody else looks at success. If it's like the same things, well, it's a failure if blah, 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 blah doesn't happen. And yet somebody could turn around and say, well, if those things happen to me, that would be a success for me. So it's all different perspectives. So it comes from, how we define success or failure is personal to each person, and it will look different for different people. So, and we also shape how we handle relationships, money, health, and forgiveness. So learning, if you come from a family that has always been on the hard times, that basically live paycheck to paycheck, you may have that mentality for money. How do you change that so that you have a healthy respect for money, a healthy relationship with money? Looking at relationships, if you've got somebody who goes through relationships like crazy, just bounces from relationship to relationship, how do you get a healthy look at relationships and what they can do for you? How do you get those healthy relationships? Your own health, knowing your own body. That is a huge thing, is to know your own body. Know how it feels. Know when you tune into your own body, you can actually tell when something is off. Is it off enough that you need to go to the doctor? Or is it off enough that if you take this supplement or maybe this essential oil, or if you do this or that, it may solve what's going on? Like, I know if my ears start to hurt, what I need to do to treat them to stop it going and becoming vertigo, getting an ear infection and then getting into vertigo. And then I got to go to the doctor and get antibiotics. And so as soon as my ear starts to hurt, I have my techniques of how to stop that hurting and kill off whatever's trying to take ground. If I feel a little heady and I feel like a cold is coming on, I have my little remedies that I take for 24 hours, and boom, for the rest of that day, and then boom, wake up the next morning and it's gone. So I know that. How do people forgive? Watching people forgive others for mistakes that they have made will help. You may absorb that, because as a child, when you're growing up and you see people apologizing and being forgiven, how does that make you feel? That is something that you've been shaped on. How do I deal with forgiveness? So becoming aware of what we carry. Sometimes the lessons we inherited served a different time or survival need and may not serve us now. So think about the time that what age were you when you learned something? Because, today it may be a little different with the way things have changed, with all the technology and everything that's come into place, or just how society has changed. What you learned back then, it could be different how it's handled now. So, or different how you survive based on what society was like at the time, what the era was like, what was going on at that time. How did you deal with this? How did you deal with that? Move forward to today, where society has definitely changed from what it was, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when you may have witnessed this. And now you're looking back and going, well, I learned a great lesson back then and it served me then, but is it serving me now? Because of the way times have changed, is it now going to serve? Is that same way of dealing with things going to work today? Maybe I need to change it in order for it to work. Awareness also gives us the choice to honor some lessons and outgrow others. There are some lessons we are going to honor that are timeless, that are going to go through from generation to generation to generation, and others are going to have to stop with you because they no longer serve a purpose now. They were effective back then. They are not effective today. So we have 3 questions for you in the description below, just to give you reflection. So your reflection invitation for today is, what's one positive lesson you absorbed growing up, even if it wasn't said out loud? What's one limiting lesson you may have inherited, and how has it shaped your decisions? And if you could intentionally pass down one new lesson today, what would it be? The lessons we inherit aren't destiny. They're invitations to carry forward with what strengthens us and to leave behind what no longer fits the life that we are called to live. And with that, we are out of here for today. Go out, have a super fantastic, sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys